What do you guys think are we at a pivotal moment in time where we lose the traditional Google search and we're just now LLM searches?
It's not only the LLMs. For younger people, now it's TikTok, Instagram. So maybe, I would say maybe, but also the users that are still using search engines to look for information. Sometimes they are not getting the right answer or correct information, so they need to look again.
People are getting hyper-personalized content on chat models and socials. So we've tried to evaluate how do we provide that hyper-personal content on, our websites as well, with dynamic content and localized content to help compete in that same space.
I think for certain prompts, like looking for a mattress that can take, a while to purchase, maybe chatgpt or others is a better model now. But when there's more of an immediate thing, like we have no heat, I feel like Google's still pretty good.
Welcome to SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Koa Kauwe. This is brought to you by Stan Ventures. Today, I have 3 guests on with us that we're going to be discussing, I would call it like when SEO is truly valuable and trying to understand the right time to recommend it. Like we're really trying to understand what a customer expects SEO to be versus the reality of SEO and how to actually implement it correctly. So we brought 3 guests on with us again. I want to give you each a chance to introduce yourself, starting with Eliz. Please tell us a little bit about your background in SEO.
Thank you, Koa. Well, my name is Eliz. I live in Mexico, in Playa del Carmen. I've been doing SEO for the last 6 years. I have a background in different niches. I've been working as a freelancer, in marketing agencies and companies that build their own websites. So thank you very much for the invite. And
that's perfect. So people are bringing you in to run the SEO strategy after they've built a website then, right?
Yeah, or sometimes before or in the meantime. Yeah, we can build the website. I work with a friend that he's a developer, so some of our clients came with us having already a website, and some others bring their ideas. So I can help them with the strategy.
I like it. I think that's actually becoming way more common too, is the web development and SEO are blended together instead of it being fragmented like it was for the last decade. So Eliz, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you being here. Hanna, if you please tell us a little bit about your background in SEO.
Sure. My name is Hanna. I'm currently Director of Digital Strategy at a full-service agency based in Indianapolis. I've spent the last 8 years in digital marketing and SEO strategies, all in agencies. So I've spent time on both the account management side and really in our digital service lines. So I kind of get a unique perspective of A to Z client work, and really enjoy that portion of it. So I'm excited to get a chance to be here today, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I appreciated your perspective too. I was glad that you have a lot of the account management perspective because I do want to know more about what the clients are actually feeling. So thank you for joining us, Hanna. Excited to have you here. And Greg, last but not least, and I have to let the viewers know that I complimented a great haircut on you today and found out that he did it himself. So if everyone wants to be a little impressed by that, that's a pretty good DIY haircut, man. Thanks for joining us, Greg. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Greg. I live in New York. I've been in the SEO space since 2011, and actually was kind of by mistake. When I was in college, I helped build a website for 2 of my friends who were photographers. We got a few gigs from it, and I started to realize this actually would be a career. And then I got into that from a specialist side and an agency. Then I went in-house. I did a brief stint at Microsoft Bing Ads just to get into paid search to understand a little bit about how that works. And now today I run my own digital marketing company.
Yeah, and I appreciated your perspective. You have some years of experience in SEO and a pretty, I'd say, healthy take on how AI has changed a lot of stuff for you. I'm excited to have that perspective on the podcast as well. So I am going to open this up with a question to the 3 of you, and feel free to jump in if you want to answer first. But the first question I have for you is what SEO is truly meant to accomplish versus what the client often expects it to be. This is a very complicated question in that customers are not necessarily aware of what SEO really is. Tell me where this misunderstanding is happening the most often.
I'm happy to answer my perspective, at least what we see from clients. I think SEO has become a little bit of a buzzword, and clients expect really fast results, just like you would with a lot of other campaigns. at least from our perspective, we feel like SEO is a little bit more of a credibility, long-term visibility strategy versus like direct lead building that you're going to see next week. Just if you're doing true SEO strategy, your goal is longevity, not, quick grabs. So I think that's where, sometimes we see clients coming in wanting an SEO strategy when in reality with their business goals, that's not exactly what they need to be focused on at the moment. But then at the same time, we think SEO works best when it's connected with other channels like your PR and your web development versus as a standalone tactic. Just with the new age of search and how people are discovering brands, it can't be a standalone strategy anymore. So working at an agency where we do have those full service capabilities, we get to see how all those channels interact with one another and really support and bolster each of those categories. So that's been kind of fun, but it's understanding that sustainable growth versus kind of the quick wins. That challenge is sometimes a long conversation with clients.
I want to ask the group again here, just opening it up. What is the customer misunderstanding about that long-term investment? What are they expecting from you guys that maybe causes some frustration?
I think it's not only to be found once the user is searching for something. It's also to have a good quality of leads. And I think there's another misunderstanding there because sometimes they want to have a lot of traffic, but it's like I can give you a lot of traffic, but it's not going to be the user that you want to approach. So sometimes I would prefer to maybe not having tons of traffic, but to give them like the amount of leads they want or the conversions that they want. And it's kind of difficult because sometimes they don't know exactly what they want. So there's a point of there's no middle ground sometimes.
I think that we see that pretty often where what they want and what they need are not the same thing at all. And you have to redefine those expectations. Greg, I'd be interested in hearing your perspective on the lead side of things from what the customer wants, because it's not just SEO that you have a background in, it's also paid ads. Where do you feel like we're getting the most confusion for customers on what SEO really is versus what they actually are expecting?
I think from my experience, when I onboard new clients, a lot of times they had a previous SEO, either individual or company worked for them. And sometimes the KPIs that they talked about were things like how many maybe articles they created, how many broken links they fixed on the website, a lot of just busy work that doesn't necessarily translate into leads. So usually when I potentially onboard a new client or I have an opportunity to, I'm very results driven. So I'll go back in and say, okay, if you're an e-commerce brand, for example, I want to know your revenue per session model. So the idea is if we increase our traffic by, let's say, 1,000 more sessions, it's worth this much more in revenue. And I can go off your own historical data on that. So the conversation really changes from we're fixing a bunch of broken internal links to improve our overall SEMrush score. And instead we're focusing on building more pages or maybe even ranking them higher because we think we're going to get X amount more in revenue.
I love it. Hanna, I want to address something that I think you mentioned. Maybe it was before we actually went live with the recording. Customers have been given tools with AI power, right? And they feel like they can just use this tool to assess everything that's wrong with the website. And Greg, I feel like it lines up really, really well with busy work and not necessarily work that moves the needle. And Hanna and Eliz, both of you, I guess, tell me a little bit about what you're seeing with customers bringing their own AI strategies into your fulfillment to try to guide your strategies and how you're combating telling them their AI tool might be wrong and that your strategy is right.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's context is everything. I mean, similar to what Greg was saying is you're going to be able to use a lot of these tools, which for some people are really great to be given that knowledge, to have more competent conversations around marketing. If it's a knowledge tool, that's great. If it's your only knowledge tool, that's where we tend to see there's issues. Like Greg said, we get a lot of people saying, hey, I put my website through this AI tool and we need to fix all these broken links or these images don't have alt text and all that's great. That foundation is really important for the longevity of your website, but it's not going to move the needle if you're looking at specific conversion or revenue tactics. So that's sometimes where we have to we will a lot of times work with clients on like effort versus reward and build out, okay, what are the tactics that really need to happen to have like a fully functioning SEO strategy? And what is the reward versus effort there to help prioritize, what's going to move the needle in the next 6 months and then what's going to move the needle in the next 3 months. So again, knowledge isn't a bad thing. It's just when it's provided without context is when we run into some disagreements with client strategies for sure.
Eliz, tell me what you think here. Where are you seeing some misalignment with the AI tools and maybe your customers' expectations?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot recently. They send us like kind of audits that they ask for a different type of AIs. But sometimes it's like last week we agree on a strategy and right now you are sending me a lot of things that you want to fix, and it's kind of annoying because it's kind of just let us do the work and see how it goes instead of crossing information between different tools. And sometimes, like Hanna said, the AI doesn't have the full context like we do. So it's kind of frustrating, not for us, but also for the client. And sometimes it's the type of clients that wants to see results like really fast, or maybe questioning why you're not putting attention on fixing broken links or adding alt text to the images. So I think one of the biggest challenge for us right now is to educate the clients.
I want to jump in here. I have the thought that fulfillment has changed a lot in marketing recently, where people aren't selling as many packages with X amount of fulfillment tasks. They're trying to be more flexible to run a creative strategy that's really going to move the needle. I think that aligns with what you guys have talked about. And it's complicated to sell that. I mean, if your customer's coming to you with an AI package, you could try to pitch them an hourly rate. But if you were to do everything that they asked you to do, it feels like you'd have to quadruple their budget. And they don't realize that there's just a ton of labor associated with the tasks. They just expect you to do it all for the monthly package that you're paying. So I want to, and I hope this isn't too complicated of a question, but how are you actually prioritizing where that budget would go for a customer? Because that's where this becomes a misalignment of like KPIs, right? They have these tasks they want you to do, but ultimately you need to drive more revenue. How do you prioritize what tasks you're doing on a monthly basis for your customers? And I know that this is probably an it depends answer, but tell me what you guys are working on.
Yeah, I'll take it first, just because I have this e-commerce client that this is kind of what we've already been talking about, where we'll have like a marketing quarter goal or multiple quarters what they need to hit, and we'll back into the numbers and say organic search maybe makes up 40% of the total revenue, and then the other channels make up the difference. It comes down to what channels we can push to hopefully hit their quarter for the revenue goal. And then we keep back into that number and saying, okay, well, what can we get from organic search that we're currently not getting right now? How much more lift can we do? And then we back into different optimizations that would take, whether it's, some keywords are on page 2 of Google. We think we can get them to page 1. That can be an immediate increase in traffic. Others could be creating new pages entirely. Other ones could be speed optimizations. And if we decrease the load time by 1 second, we can forecast maybe the bounce rate improves by 2%. And if that's the case, the conversion rate stays the same. Therefore, you actually will get more conversions from that, because we can assume that some people might just bounce because it takes too long to load. So there's a lot of ways to kind of back into, ultimately the goal is, what's the revenue target? What are our most important pages to really focus on? And what can we do from the both immediate but also long-term to hit that?
Are you using an AI tool to try to guide that strategy at all? Or do you find that it's mostly driven by intuition at this point?
So every client that I have, I always say, I don't know your business. I only know the space that I'm in. So I actually rely more on them to say, from a paid search perspective, social, direct, organic, what are the best SKUs to focus on? And then I can do my own analysis and say, we spend $20,000 a month on, these particular SKUs on Google Ads. We're not ranking that well from organic. That might be an opportunity for us to really focus on, because we can get more of that traffic to that landing page. Based off your historicals, we think the conversion rate and the revenue would look like that.
Hanna and Eliz, where do you guys align with what he just said? And maybe where does your company handle it a little differently?
I think speaking about budget, it would be, at least from my perspective, is to put it first on the task that bring more value to the campaign. For example, if you have a client that already has a good amount of traffic, but it's not getting conversions, well, you need to focus first on the CRO. But if there is a client that has a lot of technical issues and maybe you need to migrate to another, a CRM, maybe you have to put your budget there. So, like you said, it's like a it depends question.
It definitely
But we have, we have different scenarios.
And I even like, Greg, that you brought up discovery, and we'll go into that in a second because that's like the next question here. But Hanna, please tell us a little bit about how you guys are trying to figure out where to place those budgets.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we get competing requests, we always want to realign on the goals and the KPIs. We work across a broad selection of industries, so conversions or leads are not always everyone's goal. But I think that's sometimes where things get a little confusing when, people are saying, well, their conversion rate's really good. Do they need more traffic? Are they focused on awareness? There's a lot of different opportunities there. And I think a lot of times, rather than just assume, we take it back to the beginning and revisit our discovery call or revisit our notes and say, okay, here's what you told us in the beginning. If that shifted, great, let's have that conversation. But we've been using this as our North Star. So we have to kind of evaluate, has the work we've been doing so far, do we have to redo that? Has it made any sort of benefit so far? And do we need to change directions? But I think for us, it's always going back to those alignment on goals. And we do that often.
Yeah, that KPI seems to be a moving target in tough situations. And I think that's the reality of marketing being valuable 6 months later, a year later, is that the business is always changing. It's never truly stagnant. The discovery phase feels like super unique in each company. So I won't try to make you guys define your discovery phase, but I do want to say that education and how much you need to educate the customer has completely changed. So tell me how you're navigating, and I know we touched on this briefly, but how you're navigating a world where your customer can search every term and understands things at a completely different level, and where that's helping you, possibly where that's hurting you. Help me see how the education aspect of your customers being able to learn so much so quickly has changed your agencies. And I'll share an example to start this out, but Stand Ventures does link building. And one of the big things we've seen recently is if we send 10 links to a customer, they'll send those 10 links through like an AI tool. And the AI tool might say that it doesn't like 7 or 8 of them. And we have different disagreements with the AI tool on how valuable it would be based on the customer's budget. But the relevancy and other things it's letting the customer do a deeper level of assessment that we haven't experienced in the past. And we find that we're like adjusting to that strategy to make sure that our fulfillment models give a little more flexibility to the customer doing their own checks throughout the process. So I'd be curious if you guys are experiencing anything like that.
I can speak a little bit to our process. So like most, we get RFPs, we get just lead forms, we also get word of mouth. So we get clients that come in kind of every which way. I would argue that a lot of our word of mouth clients and lead form clients hasn't really changed a lot in our discovery, but a lot more of the RFP process clients, we tend to see that the RFPs are a lot more descriptive. You can tell that they've done their digging or their AI research on, okay, what's included in a creative campaign, what's included in SEO strategy. So in some ways, I think it's beneficial because I do feel like it's helped some clients drill down a little bit more on, okay, what is really all included in this one specific thing that I'm asking for? And do I have the budget to do that and kind of prioritize? But then again, at the same time, we've got clients in those similar situations that then have everything listed under the sun without really being able to prioritize because, their AI tools are telling them they need everything. So I think, again, it depends situation, but I think in some ways it has helped clients just understand a little bit more of the full picture when you're doing, larger campaigns.
Have any of you guided prompts for your customers to help them understand the value of your services? I had the thought recently that like one of the agencies one of the clients that I'm working with, I knew that they would be searching the value of our package and the service that I was providing. So I felt like I was able to like guide that prompt in a way that said, this is where the value really is, and not have them misrepresent the prompt and ask the wrong questions and completely misrepresent the service. I was just curious if you guys have experienced that thought at all of knowing they're going to double check you and making sure that they search it the right way. It'd be interesting to insert prompts into your reporting dashboards where they could actually search specific prompts so that you could guide it the right direction.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I can, since we're talking about prompts, I can kind of just give a little insight into what I'm doing with that. For the clients I have, AI visibility has been a big topic in 2026. So like, how's our brand being, mentioned on ChatGPT and other platforms? But there's plenty of tools out there that do, I don't even just say if you're mentioned for different prompts, like what are the best sandals to take to the beach, right? Versus the pool, versus all these other, ways you can search. But it's how positive your brand is actually mentioned. And there's some really cool tools that actually can showcase that against your competition. So when you're looking at if your brand is mentioned or not, you can then share with your client if it's in a positive manner, a neutral, or a negative. And that can then feed back into the PR team, that can feed into the social team, that can feed into a lot of different teams as well to try to, change the narrative a little bit by saying, hey, it's great that we're featured, but we're not quite the number one recommendation. How do we change that? And I think that's pretty cool now with prompts and how they work with keywords as well.
That brings up something that I thought about earlier when we were talking about SEO being the long game. It feels like AI is getting people found much quicker than a traditional SEO would if you added a new page, a new blog, a new service. Are you guys finding that SEO is not quite the long-term game it used to be if it includes AEO, GEO strategies in place? Are we seeing a change in the way that customers perceive the value of SEO because it has more immediate returns?
I don't think so. I still think that to rank in AI or LLMs, you still need a good SEO background. So you still need to have like good site structure, good content, EAT elements, obviously. So maybe I don't have like an example to confirm this. Maybe for a website that it's already good and with good DR and good backlinks, maybe it's faster to rank, but I still think that the hard work needs to be done.
Yeah, unless they have an unlimited budget to get their SEO completely fixed in the very beginning, this is still a long-term plan. Hannah, you're laughing. Tell us your perspective.
No, I mean, I think that's right. Is I feel like there's just been a lot of like rhetoric of what's going to beat out GEO or SEO and what's the new strategy. But I think it's just layered on top of each other. I mean, you still have the traditional searchers who are still going to utilize search engines the same way, and we can't forget about them. But you still have this new wave of searchers who are utilizing LLMs as their first stop point that we have to cater to as well. So I don't think it's forgetting one and focusing on the other. It's making sure that you understand your client base and your demographic, and then putting the budget or the strategies towards the areas that need improvement. But in some of our clients that we've been tracking AI visibility and SEO traditional website traffic, we've seen some correlations. I mean, it's not apples to apples, but of increased AI visibility with increased traffic. So I still think that there's some data that's showing that even though people see you in ChatGPT or any of these LLMs, they're still doing a regular search to your site to then find out more information. But that's just kind of some initial data that we're seeing on our end.
Yeah, and Hannah, actually, I wanted to jump in. It's like we probably all use ChatGPT and other sources as well. I just remember when I was at Microsoft and Cortana was coming out, and they were like, this is the thing that everyone's going to be doing. They're going to be searching all day, voice search on their computer. And like you build it, like you get into the hype. You're like, yeah, that's like, it's going to change everything. And I remember conversations with, team members, or even when I went to back into a traditional SEO role, everyone said, how are we going to rank for voice search? Like, what do we need to do different for it? And I think a lot of times it's every few years now when you've been doing this for, a while, I guess you kind of see like, hey, like this is like the new hot thing that's taking place. And then everyone doesn't want to look like a fool. So they all jump on it and say like, we need to also make sure we're doing this too. But I think Eliz, as you were kind of saying, and Hannah as well, I think kind of, as an SEO, you're able to really steer the conversation and say like, we're doing the right things from a technical standpoint. There's no like magic thing that we need to do from like a voice search perspective. There's a lot of things people will like write about and say like, this is how you do it. But I think at the end of the day, if you have like a strong technical, foundation, going after the keywords your audience is looking for, Generally speaking, it kind of follows the same path. Just want to kind of share that experience where 10 years ago, I remember hearing Cortana was going to be used everywhere, and now it has been discontinued. So
I know one of the pitches we used to talk about at the agency I worked at in the past was that people use the yellow books. They use their phone books for decades. And there was a point where Google started, or Yahoo or Ask Jeeves or whatever else search engines were starting to pop up. And many people thought that people would never transition over to just searching on the internet for a pizza part, like a pizza restaurant or wherever else they wanted to go, right? And there's a phase where it started taking over. And I'm wondering if that's the phase we're at right now, where the traditional SEO still has a foundation in that it exists behind the scenes of AI search. But is AI search just so much easier that we're on the phase where people will stop pulling out their phone book? They'll stop Googling things because they can find the answers. What do you guys think are we at a pivotal moment in time where we lose the traditional Google search and we're just now LLM searches?
And it's not only the LLMs. For younger people now it's TikTok, Instagram. So maybe, I would say maybe, but also the users that are still using search engines to look for information. Sometimes they are not getting the right answer or correct information, so they need to look again. So some of them, I think they're going back to more traditional searches. Like, I don't care about the AI overview. I'm going to go directly to the blue links that Google is giving to me.
So a trust issue with the LLMs, maybe guiding them the wrong way or having the wrong context for the conversation. Greg and Hannah, what do you guys think about the changes we're seeing in search?
I mean, I think for me, if you even look at the last 20 years, nothing has stayed the same. Everything has evolved. And I think that traditional searching is going to stay. I think AI search is going to increase. Social search is going to increase. But that's also going to change in the next 5 to 10 years of how people use that, what platforms come out. So I think that it's always going to be changing, and it's important is we're in this industry to just keep tabs on it and shift our strategies. I don't think the way AI search is happening now is going to be how it's going to be in the next 5 years. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that we've been focused on specifically is as you mentioned, that people are getting hyper personalized content on chat models and socials. So we've tried to evaluate how do we provide that hyper personal content on our websites as well, with dynamic content and localized content to help compete in that same space. So that's kind of an area that we're starting to dig into and understand how we can kind of learn from that and bring it to the traditional search as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what you said, Hannah, was perfect. I am awful when it comes to searching on TikTok. I can't, the content's too quick for me. I know I'm not like the ideal demographic to use it. So I'll try to follow a recipe and I'm like, oh man, I found this on TikTok, but I can't even follow this. I have to now go to Google search and go and try to, read the actual thing. And I think it's very interesting now because there's so many different ways you can search. And I find myself using chatgpt to, for the 5th time, seems like in the past 5 years, buy a new mattress. And I'm asking all these follow-up prompts, what's good for if you want to sleep cool, and what's good for back pain. I'm doing all these different searches, and then I'm on other websites as well, comparing. So I think there's so many different tools you can use, but I think at least what I've noticed though is that there's always all these articles about how the SEO industry is over, or no one's using Google anymore and all these things. But I'm still, for me, when I do local searches, when I need an HVAC company, for example, if there's an issue with my my heating not turning on, I'm not going to ChatGPT to ask 5 questions about heat and stuff like that. I'm literally opening up my phone, searching HVAC near me, and I'm calling the first few listings that show up because I need something done right away. So I think for certain prompts, looking for a mattress that can take a while to purchase, maybe ChatGPT or others is a better model now. But when there's more of an immediate thing, you have no heat, I feel like Google's still pretty good.
Yeah, I think that explained it really well, actually, that there's certain searches that Google does a really, really good job for that you just wouldn't take over to ChatGPT. But if you wanted to fix your own plumbing, you could go to ChatGPT and try to give it every single variable inside your problem and see if you could figure out how to do it yourself, right? So I do want to backtrack a little bit. We were talking about how you try to decide where the right budget is and like where you should dedicate your budget. I think someone called it a point system once, and I really liked it. Like if you have 10 points, you got to figure out where the best return on investment is for your customer. You kind of distribute it accordingly. Where should businesses invest today with the feel of like SEO changing? Do you feel like it's more in like, I guess let me rephrase this. Multi-channel has become such a huge part of what SEO is today. It's no longer just one place. So how are you actually helping a customer distribute their SEO budget across multi-channel and it still be effective? Because it feels like it could get watered down really quickly, and SEO has become more complicated. We talk about it being dead, but it's just more complicated than ever, right? Like it's more alive than it's ever been. So how are you guys navigating this multi-channel aspect of SEO and trying to prioritize a customer's budget at that point? And it could just go back to the discovery phase, because we kind of talked about this already, but it just feels like spending their budget effectively is more complicated than ever when it comes to like traditional SEO. Technical SEO is there. Where do you expand beyond that? Greg, let me feed you in on this one, because I think we had a conversation in the pre-call that I'm trying to get at. It might not be a very, very well worded question. When you were talking about AI, AEO, GEO, AI SEO, whatever you want to call it, it felt like you were taking SEO to the next level of detail that I feel like many agencies are actually not doing today, where it feels like they're going after generic content or they're leaning too heavily on AI to produce content. And Hanna, you reached into this a little bit too. Tell me how you guys are taking your SEO beyond what someone would do if they were trying to do it themselves. Because I feel like there's a huge gap between SEO that an agency, that a customer would do themselves versus what an agency does in thoughtful growth or thoughtful content that's actually guided by data. And Eliz, tell me if you guys are doing the same thing here too. I guess to rephrase the question, how do you expand your SEO fulfillment to more than AI slop?
I mean, I can jump in on one of the things that I know our agency is focused on. I mentioned it earlier, is that hyper personalization. Is more is not better, and I think that is where just the industry is at the moment. And a lot of customers and users don't care if they're one of many. They want to be one of one, and they want to feel like the content is focused towards them. So I think specifically we take learnings from every single one of our departments, our paid media department, how we A/B test there, anything we're doing on the PR side, to help really identify the customers you want, how you want them to act, and what you want them to learn, and hyper focus our strategies versus a little bit more of that like spray and pray that I feel like some traditional SEO strategies have been. And there are still some that I feel like, hey, you got a ton of traffic or this blog went viral, great, but what does it get you? And if it's not getting you the customer or the return that you want, why did we spend effort there?
I think that did a good job of summarizing where my question was intended to go. I appreciate that, Hanna. Eliz, jump in here. Tell us what you guys how you're approaching it.
Again, it depends. If you are in the discovery phase, maybe you need to focus or spend maybe on PPC. If your audience is in social media, you can split your budget there too. But I'm sorry, I'm not really involved in the budget. I mean, for me, sometimes it's like, from the SEO perspective, we need to do this. So I'm not really involved with other departments, but what I can see is like Hanna said, I see them doing A/B tests, and sometimes it helps us to see, for example, for a PPC campaign on Google Ads, what kind of keywords are converting more than others. So that brings us a good information for what can we do. Obviously, if you are focused on getting more to get an acknowledgement, or if you want to focus only on conversions, that's another thing you have to
I really
consider.
Like the approach of the PPC conversions being blended into the SEO strategy, which I've seen more lately than ever. The two are overlapping in a way I've never seen them before. Greg, I want to touch on something you mentioned here too, is the mattress shopping. I thought this was really fascinating because if a customer was to make their own website for mattresses, it would have dimensions, it would have a lot of information, but it probably doesn't go as detailed as to talk about how it cools different than other mattresses might cool. So if you ask an LLM to find the best cooling mattress and you've done it with a generic AI tool, you probably don't have much that talks about the technology that really differentiates your mattress from others. And it feels like that's where the new SEO realm is going way deeper on details and specifications that make it fit unique customer situations. And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but you're using a certain tool to try to find those unique searches, whether they're long tail or not, to try to produce that content, right?
Yeah. So with SEO, paid search, and then with AEO, GEO, I use this tool called outerly.ai, and you can they have all these different tools within their dashboard. You can use chatgpt to take your brand name, your industry, your audience, and they come up with all these different prompts that are actually across Perplexity, ChatGPT, Copilot, and Google AI Overview. So you get a real insight into a longer tail prompt someone might be searching for. The example that I gave before this call was you can use the data from paid search, for example. You use the search terms report. You can see keywords that you're not even thinking of from an SEO perspective that are driving conversions or purchases or leads. And you can maybe build a new dedicated landing page from an SEO perspective and say, we're going to go after this core target because based off our rankings, we're not currently there. But then the prompts that you look at, longer tails, again, like what are the best sandals for sitting by the pool versus, a rocky beach versus a sandy beach, all these different prompts, you'll see actually, hey, you have no visibility perhaps against Copilot, ChatGPT, and other platforms as well. You can create dedicated blog posts either about that, or you can include this information directly on your landing page, see if you can actually increase your brand mentions for these prompts. The tool is pretty great because not only will it track your brand mentions on a daily, but also can track against your competition as well. So when you're looking at this from an overview and saying, hey, just as Hannah's mentioning, and so is Eliz, where people use different platforms to do discovery, you might look at this and say, hey, we're doing well for our core terms from an organic perspective. We only have this fixed amount of budget for Google Ads. What else can we do to get more people to find our brand? And I think kind of tying all three together is a really full and complete picture of saying, hey, if they're going to use ChatGPT, we want to make sure we're there with a longer tail prompt. If they're searching for this particular keyword, we want to make sure we have a cost per, a CPA that fits our model within Google Ads. And of course, with organic search, are we keeping the top ranking positions? Are we refining our content? Are we always adding more to it to make sure that we're competitive? Because most likely than not, your competition is doing that too.
I think that's where I was hoping to hear from you guys, was like how we're really changing content today that's different than what the traditional SEO packages implemented. I loved the thought that like the old blogs were spray and pray, where they just really had keywords in there and they were hoping that it was going to show up just based off of volume. But today it's about the quality of that content and being genuinely helpful. So my last question for the three of you guys, knowing that we're changing to an age, I'd say, of agencies having to get very specific on the real value that the customers can provide, that their client can provide to their customers to really make them stand out. Where else are agencies going to have to adapt the most over the next couple of years? Where do you see the most change happening in the agency model over the next few years? So this is an easy one, and I joke about this, but I'm just asking you to predict the future for us. We're going to hold you guys to this because it'll be on the internet forever. But just give us your perspective, your opinion. Where do you see things changing the most for the agencies?
I can start. I feel like we're going to see more and more agencies move towards maybe not a full service model, but a number of service model with experts in each of those service lines because of how much PPC, PR, SEO, web development has to work together in tandem for those channel strategies to be successful. I just see we're getting an influx of a lot of clients recently that are looking for somebody who can do A through Z to help them see how that rounds out. So I think either agencies are going to have to shift to be able to have that available or find those partnerships to be able to support their clients in that way, maybe more than ever before.
That's an interesting thought, that like agencies working together in a way, which I feel like I've seen the collaboration more than ever over the last year or so working on the podcast, is the willingness to work together instead of see each other as competition. That's really cool.
Yeah, we actually have a client we've worked with for several years that we are one of 7 agency partners that they have that all work together in different areas. And then we all get together twice a year and discuss, present on what we've learned, areas where we want to see improvement, kind of our data, and we all work together to kind of find holes, find gaps, find successes, and learn from that. So it's been, every twice a year, I basically get a little conference with 7 other agencies, get to learn from them and what they're doing, all in support of one client, which is unique, but really successful.
I can't even imagine how terrible that would have been before the age of data being so easily shared, where there'd just be too many hands in the cookie jar breaking things. That's wild. I haven't heard much of that type of collaboration. Thank you for sharing that, Hanna. Greg and Eliz, tell me what you're predicting from the future of agencies.
From the SEO perspective, I think it's going to be like other type of search that gain popularity, but I think that SEO at its core is going to be the most important thing. Like Greg said, a few years ago it was the voice search. Now is AI. It was also the rich snippet. They try to get that 0 position. I think with AI it's going to be something like that. But also I believe that, like Hanna said, it's going to be, we are going to offer, like, we will need to offer like a more holistic service. I think, I don't want to say that SEO is not, it's not complete, but knowing that right now there are a lot of tools that people can use as search engines, we need to adapt to that and like offer a service that can bring you visibility from different channels.
I really like that from both of you guys, knowing that there's so much power for a customer to do a specific service on their own. If they wanted to deep dive into SEO alone, they could learn it over the course of a few months to a pretty high extent using the tools. But how it all integrates and works together, that's going to take a whole lot longer. So I really like that perspective. Greg, I guess you're last the best again here. Last but not least, tell us what you think. So yours better be 100% accurate, actually. We gave you the most time to think about it.
Well, I liked Hannah's answer with teams not really competing against each other. I just know from experience back in 2012, it was very much like paid search did this, and then SEO was like, well, we did this. And it was like this big like battle on the call with the client. And it was like kind of awkward at times if like something wasn't working because it seemed like one, field was trying to outshine the other. But I just think, I have local SEO clients, and things really changed very quickly where Google removed the call button from organic map pack results. And I think like the fluidity of like, okay, like we know that happened, but we need to adapt. Apple Maps is one thing that no one really talks about. That's a great, area to focus on. Apple's going to start having ads now in Apple Maps as well. So I really think from like an agency perspective, I think being able to adapt and being, creative and strategic of, okay, the rule book is changing once again, but we're able to sort of, at the end of the day, what's the end goal of this, which is potentially more leads and more conversions for the client. How do we get to them? And I think that's kind of where the agency kind of comes into play and say, let us focus on that while you focus on what you do best, which is your business.
I thought to ask a question. We're out of time, so I won't make you guys answer this, but the customer doesn't necessarily see the value of a marketing agency 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now. They feel like they're supposed to pay you to do your job, and then your job's done. And you guys brought up some really great points about the changing aspect of marketing and how it is staying ahead of your competition. It's not reacting to the market changes after you've already lost the game a little bit, right? Like catching up is so much more expensive than just staying ahead. I think that's like the real value of the agency today, especially in like a multifaceted like fulfillment agency, and just how far SEO is spreading. It would spread an employee far too thin to try to run the company. And from what we all understand, a completely different perspective of run the marketing of a company. So I really think that that's where it's kind of fun that we touched on this. I want to thank the 3 of you for joining us. Thank you for predicting the future for me. We'll tag that on LinkedIn when we release this so that we can have the proof and evidence of your predictions in the future. But thanks for joining us for SEO On Air, and we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.